Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Hey, what's happening, CSU? Super pumped to be here. Appreciate you guys flying me out here to come speak to you. I love coming to Fort Collins. If you've ever been to Stillwater before, you would know, Fort Collins is way cooler. There's, mountains here. There's trees here. So this is pretty awesome for me to see and experience. So thank you guys so much for bringing me out here to speak to you guys. I flew in from Stillwater this morning. That's where I met my wife, was at OSU. We've been married almost 10 years now. It's been, thank you. That's why we do it. For some cheers like that, that will carry us on for another 10 years. I met her at OSU, and we now have 4 kids. Is that not insane? 4 kids. I know what you're thinking. Wow, I didn't know StuMo was a part of the Amish. Okay, yeah. It's okay, you can laugh at that. 4 kids is crazy. We're not Amish, okay? I take offense at that, and so does my oldest son, Jedediah, okay? So don't be calling us Amish. Here's actually a picture of all of my kids right here. Oh, there they are. Yep, there they are. So we have Cohen, and then Callaway, Caden, and then Camille. My name is Cameron. My wife's name is Catherine. So all C names. No, we're not Amish. Yes, we are freaks. Okay, I get that. Calling us all the same C names is a little bit crazy. We have 3 boys, and then this April we had our very first girl. So that has brought a lot of newness into our house. We've known nothing but boys, and then all of a sudden a girl comes around, and there's a lot of new things with a girl. I can remember a few months ago, my wife was changing her diaper, and Callaway comes in, and he just looks, and he just goes, "Where's her penis?" There was so much concern. I mean, he literally was like, "Where's her penis?" Luckily, my oldest, Cohen, was in the room, and he goes, "Callaway, she's a girl. She hasn't grown that yet." That's the future. I cannot wait to see what mountains those boys climb out in the real world. Wow, amazing. There's so much newness that comes. 4 kids is pretty crazy. I mean, that's pretty wild. We went down to Kaleo. Has anybody been to Kaleo before? Yeah. That's StuMo's summer project. We go down to Kaleo, we check into Mystic Dunes, and I remember we go into our condo, and I literally just scan the room, and all of a sudden the phone rings, and it's like, what? Who knows we're even in here? Nobody should even know that. I was like, hello? Is there an emergency there? No. Well, somebody just called 911 on this phone number. And I look over to my 2 oldest boys, I was like, "Did you guys call 911? And they're like, I was like, "Oh, man. I'm sorry, no, there's no emergency. My kids just called 911. It's okay." They're like, "Well, we're sending the police." And I was like, "You don't have to do that. I just told you. There's no emergency, no need for that." They're like, "They're going to be there any minute." And I was like, "Okay." Click. They're ticked. Guys, they're ticked off. They're sending the police. They're like, "No." They're up against the bed. They're just melting. They're like, "No, don't send the police." I was like, "They're coming. They're coming for you guys, okay? You're going to be the ones that talk to them." They're like, "We don't know. We don't want to talk to the police. No." And I was like, "Hey, okay, I don't know what they're going to say. You might go to jail. I have no idea, guys. I've never done anything this bad before." I was like, "I don't know. What's going to happen?" They're like, "Oh, no." So then the police come, and I was like, "Okay, here we go." I was like, "There they are, officer. Get them." There they are, right there, both of them. And I was like, "Okay, guys, come on up." And they literally just walk up like this. I was like, "Okay, guys, tell them what happened." And then the officer is like, "Hey, guys, did you dial 911? And they're like, "Yes." He's like, "That's okay. That's my job. If you ever need help, you dial 911 and I will come." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "These kids just did that? And they're getting a pat on the head?" I was like, "Can't you put them in handcuffs or show them your gun or something? I mean, these kids need to be punished. What is going on here?" He leaves. He's like, "Farewell to all a good night." It's like, what? It's like Santa Claus coming in. My kids are crazy. I could stand up here and just tell story after story after story about being a dad. I absolutely love being a dad. It's so much fun. Those guys are nuts, and it's just an incredible time. And what's interesting is that as you read through the Bible, you would see that God is referred to our Father. Like that is the relationship that God has chosen to have for him to you, for him to us, is the idea of a father to his children. We see that God is called our Father over 180 times in the New Testament alone. 180 times he is emphasizing over and over and over and over, this is the kind of relationship we have. I am your father, you are my son, you are my daughter, and we see that over and over. Tonight we're going to look at one small passage that helps to shed some light on what that relationship should look like. So I'm going to have all the verses up here on the screen, and we're going to be looking at Matthew 7 through 11. And it says this. It says, "Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened. Or which one of you, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him?" Wow, when we see that passage, there is so much to pull out of that. There's so much good stuff, and we're going to be focusing primarily on that relationship of God as our Father, and we're going to see how that can play out in our lives. So the first thing we're going to see is that God as our Father gives us access to him. God as our Father gives us access to him. Looking back at the passage, it says this, "Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened." We see that we have access to God. Like we can come to God and ask anything. He literally says, ask, and it will be given. If you seek me, you will find me. If you knock, I will open the door. Not only do we have that ability to do that, he has given us that, but he is actively inviting us to do that. He wants us to seek him. He wants us to spend time with him. He wants us to ask from him. Isn't that incredible? Just think about that for a second. The God of the universe, the God who spoke the world into existence, who is all-powerful, all-knowing, all-present, is saying, you can come to me and you can ask anything of me. Isn't that amazing? He says, ask and you shall receive. That is a promise. That is a guarantee. I knew a guy who spoke on something like this. It was basically, having access to the Father. And he talks through it, and a lady comes up afterwards and says, like, hey, I don't agree with you. I don't see that we have access to God like that. And she related it to the President of the United States. She's like, hey, I'm a citizen of the U.S., but I don't have access to the President. Like there's so many people before me, there's so many systems put in place where I don't have to go directly to the president. Like there's not enough time. He doesn't have the resources in order to even do that. And she says, just like we don't have the access to God, we don't have the access to the president. And the guy who was speaking said, you do if you're the president's son. Pretty good. If you're the president's son, you have complete access. Look. This is JFK in the Oval Office. If you just search JFK Oval Office kids, you will see multiple pictures of his kids playing in the Oval Office. Look at that. His son is under the desk. Have you ever seen a chief of staff under the desk of the president? Have you ever seen some diplomat from some foreign land under the desk, like Biden's typing away, and all of a sudden it's like the diplomat from Kenya is playing under the president's desk? That's dumb. That's silly. That would not happen. That happens if you are a child of the president. That's the only way it will happen. And I remember him saying that, and it made sense to me. It's like, yes, of course we wouldn't have access to the president unless we were a child of the president. And the same thing is true in our relationship with God. We would not have access to the Father unless we are a child. And that is the relationship that he wants to have with you. If we continue through the verse, we see God as our Father gives us good gifts. God as our Father gives us good gifts. Looking back at the passage, it says this: "How much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him?" Now you might be wondering, it's like, okay, wait a minute, hold on. You're saying ask and you shall receive. He's going to be giving me good gifts. I've asked God for certain things before and I have not gotten that. What is going on there? Yeah, I'm sure. If you have asked God for something, I'm sure that it has not come before. That's something that is common. When we think through it, it's like, okay, Lord, I need help. I need a miracle. I need an A on this test, and it will take an act of God to get an A on this test right now. You know, have you ever prayed that prayer before where it's like, okay, Lord, I need you to give me like divine insight on this test. And then you go and you take it and you get a D. And it's like, what the heck, God, where were you on that one? You know, you have maybe that experience, or you ask for like a material thing and it never comes in. Or maybe even you've prayed for a loved one who is sick, that God would heal them, and he doesn't. How does this work? Well, if we were to take this passage in context of the entire Bible, we would see that there are multiple answers towards that. We don't have time to unpack every single thing about that, but I thought a better use of our time tonight would be to emphasize the things that God will always say yes to, would be the things that God will gladly give to, and focus on that. And when I'm thinking through my personal life, where if I'm thinking through what are good gifts that God has given me, I can think of so many. The first one that comes to mind is anxiety. Anxiety. Man, I am plagued with anxiety. I don't know about you guys, but I can be so in on myself thinking about like perception management. Basically everything I'm doing, how is this person receiving me? Is this joke landing? Did I just look dumb right there? Is this embarrassed? Like, you know, it's just kind of like I'm feeling it out. I'm seeing, hey, are we vibing? Are we vibing? And then they're like, no, we're not. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Okay. You know, it's like it causes me all this anxiety, and that's happened for years. And I remember a few years ago, I was thinking about it, and I read this passage of Scripture that says that God openly invites us to cast all anxiety onto Him. Like, that is a gift. He says, hey, you can put all the anxiety that you have, and you can put it on me. And he says, if you do that, you will have a peace that surpasses all understanding. Literally, whatever environment, whatever situation, whatever conversation you have, if you have anxiety and you cast it on to God, he says that he will give you peace that doesn't even make sense. Like somebody could be looking at your situation and be like, what? How do you even have peace in this situation? And I can remember reading that and just thinking, I want that. God, you are offering this as a gift, and I'm tired of living life with anxiety. And I just remember like, I'm going to accept this gift that you are giving me, God. And so what I do now is if I have a conversation, if I walk away and I just find myself continually thinking on it, where it's like, oh man, how was oh man, they said this, oh that kind of hurt my feeling, like I'm just kind of dwelling on it, and I will just take out my journal and I'll just write about it. And I'll literally just write, hey God, this conversation happened. It went like this was said, this is how it made me feel. And I'll just start writing that. And then about halfway through, I'll ask the question, why? Why do I feel like this? God, why do I feel this when I just embarrass myself in front of all these people? And then I'll start writing that out. Well, it was embarrassing because people thought I looked dumb. Well, why does that matter? Well, that matters because I don't want to be perceived that way. Well, why don't you want to be perceived that way? Because I find my value in how people view me. My identity is wrapped up in that. And I write that down. And then the next thing I do is I say, God, thank you so much that no matter what I say, no matter what I do, no matter what I think, that you accept me. Thank you so much that I don't have to worry about that with you, that you will continue to love me over and over, no matter how dumb I look, no matter how much anxiety I have, that you will continue to love me. And then after that, what I'll write out is, Lord, I'm taking all my anxiety that I have and I'm casting it onto you. Lord, it says that if I cast all this anxiety onto you, you will give me peace. I'm accepting this gift that you have given me, and then I go. And I mean, that has radically changed my life. That has radically changed my thought life, how I interact with people. This is something that I've been doing for like 3 years. This isn't something that it's been like, oh, I've always done this. No, this is like a life change that I have accepted from God in the last 3 years. And man, it's been incredible. God gives good gifts. If you want anxiety out of your life, God says, cast it on me. You always have this gift. You can ask that over and over, and God will continue to take that away. Now, clearly, I still do that. There are still, like this morning, I was even journaling, saying like, God, I'm feeling a little bit nervous. I'm nervous about my talk today. I'm nervous about traveling. And I just kind of journaled that out. And after I did that again, I casted that anxiety onto him. And it was amazing how much better I felt, the peace that came over me after that. Another area that I think of where it's like, yes, God will always say yes. He will always give this gift, is if you want more of him. If you want a deeper relationship with God, if you ask that, if you seek that out, he will reveal himself to you. You can say, God, reveal yourself to me. Please, I want to know you more. And he will give you opportunities to know him. He will always answer that prayer with yes. If you have a genuine heart, if you're really wanting to seek after him, he says, seek and you will find it. Knock and I will open the door. That is a gift. God is giving you a great gift. And everybody in here is being offered a gift from God to grow in their relationship with him. And you might not even know it. Or maybe you know about it. Clearly you know about it. But you don't see it as a gift. And I'm talking about SMC. What they were just talking about. That really is a gift from God. If you are wanting a better relationship with him, if you are wanting to know him more, God is saying, here it is. Here is an opportunity. Take it. I'm giving it to you. This is a gift. I can remember my freshman year of college. I go to Oklahoma State. I join a fraternity. Have no idea what StuMo is. Have no idea what SMC is. At Oklahoma State, all of the freshmen live in house with the older members. So I move into the fraternity house, and I heard there's some SIG-EPs here. Is there some SIG-EPs here? Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I was a SIG-EP at OSU. So I move into the SIG-EP house, and my roommate is another freshman guy and a sophomore guy who is involved in StuMo. And he ends up actually sharing the gospel with me the second week of school. And there it just clicked. I'd kind of grown up kind of hearing about it, but I didn't really know where I stood. But for some reason, the way he phrased different things, it just made sense to me. And I end up accepting Christ in the fraternity house my freshman year, second week of school. He began showing me what it looks like to grow spiritually, what it looks like to walk with God in a fraternity house, which is a really interesting place to do that. That's not the first thing you think of when you think the fraternity house. It's like, oh yeah, those guys are walking with God. No, that's not what's happening. Man, but when he did that, I think back on that, I'm like, he had nothing to gain. I'm so thankful that he took the time to do that for me, to help me grow spiritually. Like, what was he doing that for? And I can remember him inviting me to SMC. And I was like, dude, that sounds sick. Back then, it was in Oklahoma City. I'm like, yeah, that's like, 30 minutes from here? Sure, I'll roll out to that. That sounds awesome. And I can remember there was 18 guys from my fraternity house. And don't think like this is some Christian fraternity. No, this is a normal fraternity. But there's tons of guys from my pledge class. There was older members as well. And I remember being like, dude, this is going to be sick. And we go down there. And I start building these memories with older members where I didn't really have that opportunity in the fall. So it was really cool to get to know the older guys in the fraternity. And as I was going through it, I was also growing spiritually with the other guys in my pledge class. It was amazing. I can remember going to the main sessions like they talked about. It was in this huge arena. It was all the schools together. They bring in these amazing speakers that are talking about God in the context that you guys are living, that are relevant to college students. I just remember thinking like, man, this is so cool. Like I'm looking in this huge arena, and it's not just me and Jared, my roommate. It's not just me and the 17 other guys from my fraternity. Like, there's people from my campus, there's people from other campuses. This is like really cool to see people want to grow in their faith. And from there, we go to a breakout session. Like they said, you can pick the topics. So whether you've been walking with God for years or you're not even sure if this whole God thing is for you, you can pick whatever you want to learn about so that you can maximize your growth at SMC. God is giving this as a gift. And it's a gift that not everybody gets. If you think about it, think about all the universities in America. There are way more universities out there without a StuMo than there are with one. You guys have that opportunity. Think about all the people at Colorado State. How many people know about SMC at Colorado State? How many? More or less than 1,000? 10,000? There are thousands of people here at Colorado State where there is a StuMo campus and they have no idea what SMC is. But for some reason, God has brought you here tonight. He decided to put somebody in your life that invited you to come, and He's offering this gift of SMC. What are you going to do? Are you going to accept it or reject it? Those are your two options. If you are wanting to grow in your relationship with God, God is offering an opportunity to do so. Lastly, we see God as our Father gives us a perfect Father. He gives us a perfect Father. If we look back at the passage again, one last time, it says this, "Or which one of you, if his son asks him for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask Him?" God is perfect. He is sinless. He has done no wrong. Compared to God, man, we are evil. Like, thinking through all of our thoughts, all of our actions, everything. Like, I remember a professor, like this was just a professor, not like a Christian professor at all. He just made the point, hey, if I put every single thought on the projector right now that you've had in the last week, how embarrassed would you be? Oh my gosh, that's horrible. Man, when I am compared to God, man, Jesus is saying, you who are evil, give good gifts. The point is, you are still able to give good gifts to your kids, and you're an evil person. It's not like your kid comes up and is like, "Dad, hey, I'm hungry." And I'm like, "Here you go, son. Here's a rock. Chew on that." It's like, no. He says you give them food. You don't give them a rock. You don't give them a serpent. You don't give them a snake. And He says, how much more is your heavenly Father willing to give you good gifts? I don't know what kind of relationship you have with your dad. You could have a relationship where you couldn't ask for more from your dad. You could also have a relationship where you don't even know your dad. You never even met him before. He was so far out of the picture you don't even know who he is. Wherever you fall in there, God is giving you an opportunity to experience a perfect Father. One that will always love you, one that will always forgive you, want to know what you're doing, ask you to talk to Him, fill Him in about your day, to love you, to care for you. This is a perfect Father that is always thinking about you, that wants what's best for you, wants to give you good gifts, and He is giving this opportunity and saying, I will be your perfect Father. Gives us access to Him, gives us good gifts, and gives us a perfect Father. When I think through that, there's a story that comes to mind that Jesus tells at another time in the Bible. And it goes like this. He says, there is a man who had 2 sons. And the younger son came to the father and said, "Father, I want my share of the inheritance." I'm sorry, wait, what? I want my share of the inheritance. Hello, do you know what an inheritance is? You get that when your parents die. You don't get that while they're alive. He comes up to him and he says, Dad, I would rather have your stuff than have you. I wish that you were dead and I could have your stuff. He goes up there and he says, I want my half of the inheritance. And you know what's crazy is the guy gives it to him. He literally asks for half of everything he owns, and the father gives it to him. He sells all of his land, or half of his land, half of his livestock, half of his crops, half of everything he owns, and he gives the younger son half of the inheritance. The guy takes it, he goes to a foreign land, and it says that he lives recklessly. He lives a reckless life, that he just he spends it on anything that he wants, any kind of desire, he has it. Any kind of person, any kind of thing, any kind of food, he is spending it like crazy. And then it says that he spent all of it. This guy goes hard. He takes half the inheritance, and he spends all of it. It says that he starts to get hungry, and he needs to get a job. So he gets a job as a hired hand feeding pigs. And he's feeding pigs, and it says that he is so hungry that he wished he could eat the pig slop, is how hungry he was, but he knew he couldn't because it wasn't his. He was a hired hand told to give it to the pigs, and he was so hungry to eat the pig slop, but he couldn't even eat that because it wasn't his. And after he started thinking through that, he kind of had this revelation. He started to think, and he had this thought, how many of my father's servants in his household are going hungry? How many people who work for my father get food every single day? And then he started to think, I am worthless. I don't even deserve to be called a son. And then he resolved in his mind that he would go home and he would tell his father that he was sorry and that he would work for him as a hired hand. He made that decision. He started to go home. He starts heading to his house. It says from a great distance, the father sees him coming up, and he just starts to sprint. He runs towards his son. He has to hike up his tunic, which back then in Israel was shameful. Men of that stature, men of that age, men who had that much wealth did not run. It was a shameful act. How much shame do you think that son would feel walking all the way through the property with all servants, all people in town, looking at him to get to his father? The father saw him from a great distance, and he said, I will take that shame from you, and I will do the shameful act. And he runs towards his son. And he runs up to his son, and he gets there, and the son begins what he thought in his mind. He said, Dad, I'm sorry. I'm worthless. He doesn't even get anything else out. And the dad says, bring him a robe. Bring him the finest robe. Put it on him. Bring him a ring. Put it on his finger. You, go kill the fattened calf. We are having a celebration. And all of a sudden, this son who feels completely worthless, all this shame, he is being given honor. And this guy who would have walked in feeling absolutely worthless is now walking in back to his father's house in honor as a son, with respect. He is dressed as a son. The father took all the shame by running out to him. He brings him back. There's a huge celebration. And at the very end of this story, they're at the celebration, and he says, this is my son, who once was dead and now is alive, who was lost and now is found. God wants that relationship with you. He says, I will take all the shame that you have. I will take it on myself, and I will give you glory. I will give you honor. I will give you respect. God, as our Father, gives us access to him, gives us good gifts, and gives us a perfect Father. Dear Lord, I thank you so much just for who you are. God, I thank you that we can come to you as a child. And God, that we can have this relationship with you. Lord, you are seeking us out. And God, it says that if we ask, we shall receive. If we seek, we will find. If we knock, the door will be opened. God, I just pray for everybody in here. And I just pray that they would take you up on that. God, I even pray just for SMC, seeing that as a gift. And Lord, I just pray that people would want to accept that. God, I thank you so much for your word, for who you are. And God, we ask all these things in your name. Amen.